German police say the terrorist that drove a truck into a crowded Christmas market in Berlin is still at large. Questions are now being raised about security levels and Chancellor Merkel's ability to deal with the threat.
There are no roadblocks. The traffic moves straight past. No bag checks, no added security at these Christmas markets. And that has led to questions being asked about if we knew that there was a threat, why wasn't this put in place?
Also to come this hour, Russia, Turkey and Iran pledged to safeguard agreements on Syria, prompting some awkward questions for the US State Department.
Mr. Kerry doesn't see it as a snub.
No, the Secretary doesn't see this as a snub at all.
Does he not at least feel the U.S. is being sidelined, if not excluded, from what was something the U.S. was leading on?
This leadership that you're speaking of is all past tense. Is that not true?
A few minutes ago, an explosion went off just a few meters away.
And a blast goes off in Aleppo, next to where crowds had gathered for Christmas celebrations. Hello, good afternoon. You're watching RT International. It's just gone 1 o'clock here in Moscow. Now, terror concerns and questions over Chancellor Merkel's security and migration policies have increased after German police said that the terrorist that drove a truck into a crowded Christmas market in Berlin is still at large. The suspect they initially arrested in connection with the incident has been released because of a lack of evidence. Meanwhile, Islamic State say they were behind the attack on Monday evening that killed 12 people and injured dozens more.
We've had a description of the driver who went on the run. Because of the description, we were able to arrest one suspect. Background to this incident is currently not yet clear. We're investigating.
I know that it would be particularly difficult for us all to endure if this act was committed by a person who asked for protection and asylum in Germany.
The review process for his asylum has not been completed. This person is not on the monitoring list for our intelligence services for people connected to terrorism.
We have to possibly get used to the thought that the person detained yesterday is a suspect, who is a Pakistani national. We have to get used to the thought that he may not have been the perpetrator or belong to the group of perpetrators.
It's true we cannot rule out that the perpetrator is still at large.
Well, it did take several hours for Chancellor Merkel to confirm that this latest incident was an act of terror. It comes, too, after a series of other attacks in Germany this year. Miguel Francis Santiago now takes a look at how the Chancellor has dealt with the threat.
Since Angela Merkel first announced her famous motto,
"We can do it, and whenever there is something standing in our way, we'll overcome it,"
she was repeatedly seen trying to remain positive in times of horror.
there are always places involved where any of us could have been. I can understand everyone who approaches places with lots of people today with mixed feelings. And the question, am I safe?
Then within a week, 2 more attacks struck in public places on the very same day.
We have managed so much. We will manage this.
With the latest incident in which a truck rammed into a Christmas market in Berlin, killing 12 and injuring dozens more, Merkel appeared not to be banging the drum anymore.
I know that it would be particularly difficult for us all to endure if this act was committed by a person who asked for protection and asylum in Germany.
That's after she was staunchly defending her own policy with refugee and migrant volunteers right at the time when the attack in central Berlin was taking place.
Some people need more time to be convinced, and some don't even listen. It's also a part of the diversity of opinions. In this case, you just have to continue your path. If it crosses the limit, the state has to intervene at some point and say, our lives consist of us living with our diversity, and diversity makes us richer rather than poorer.
I can say that having taken the metro into town, there is no police presence on the German metro in Berlin. The only presence is of ticket takers or controllers. But the sense of security in that metro was zero. It was just as it was in Brussels before the attacks here. If the public is being chloroformed, as it is under Angela Merkel, so that they keep the peace, so everyone is calm and relaxed, and that nobody makes connections between the dots, between her policies on immigrants and the violence that they see in their streets, so long as nobody connects these dots, the level of threat to citizenry will be high.
With Chancellor Merkel's CDU party coming in third in recent polls, largely because of her immigration policy, drastic change may now be required for Germany to get a grip on the crisis. Miguel Francis Santiago, RT.
So after the attack, many did raise the question then, why, despite multiple warnings, was it still possible for a terrorist to strike at the heart of Europe? Peter Oliver asked people in Berlin how they feel about the security situation.
The attack on the Christmas market here in Berlin has highlighted just how unprepared Germany was to deal with this type of incident. Security-wise, the warning signs were there. Earlier this year, we saw public events targeted by an ISIS-supporting suicide bomber after he detonated himself at a concert in the town of Ansbach. And then, even in the Christmas season itself, we've seen a 12-year-old boy arrested in the west of Germany after he twice tried to detonate a nail bomb in a Christmas market. Thankfully, his devices didn't go off. And Christmas markets represent a soft target. As you can see, this one just behind me here is very typical of the ones you'll find across Berlin and across Germany. There are no roadblocks. The traffic moves straight past. Questions have been raised about why that was allowed to happen following the disaster that took place in the terror attack in Nice, in which a truck was driven into a crowd of people as they watched a fireworks display. There's also, as you can see, no bag checks, no added security at these Christmas markets, and that has led to questions being asked about, if we knew that there was a threat, why wasn't this put in place? Some markets, like this one, do have security, but they're very much the exception as opposed to the rule. I asked some visitors here today if they wanted to see more security in place in order to try and protect their safety.
Yesterday was a freak example of the risks of being here.
I think just a simple thing like that around the perimeter of such markets would be a really important addition to the security that's existing already.
But with everybody seemingly able to see the soft target that Christmas markets present, questions will be asked over why security wasn't better. Peter Oliver, RT, Berlin.
However, following Monday's attack in Berlin, authorities across the country have boosted security in some places. In Dresden, for example, they are installing concrete barriers around the city's Christmas market, and more police are also being deployed. A former German intelligence officer, Rainer Rupp, told us that if there had been, though, sufficient security, things could have played out very differently in Berlin.
Of course, there was not sufficient police presence there, and no protection, no bollards, etc. But that would have the bollards probably would have made it impossible for this attack. If the area had been covered better by police, he at least wouldn't have gotten away, or they would not have gotten away. And if one imagines they're still at large, and the possibility of hijacking another truck is still there.
In the wake of the Berlin atrocity, US President-elect Donald Trump did make a statement saying it was an attack on Christians worldwide. He emphasised that the continued slaughter of Christians by Islamist terrorists is part of a global jihad and that regional and worldwide terror networks must be eradicated. Well, my colleague Daniel Hawkins did speak with Max Krah from the Alternative for Germany party and also Mo Ansar. He's a political and social commentator, and they gave us their thoughts on whether religion may have played a part in the attack.
Truth is that all the terrorist attacks we had to have in the last month were carried out by Islamist groups, by Salafi groups, and we don't know how many of jihadis are in the country. We assume that it's 2,000 to 8,000 young men who in this moment could start their attack. This is a huge risk for the security, and the law enforcement in Germany is not prepared for that. That means the whole country is endangered, is worried about the safety. And we have to address it.
This is bizarrely
we have to say stop open borders.
Max, this is quite bizarrely post-truth, and I'll tell you why. The guys from Molenbeek, the Nice attacks, these are people who had very little connection with Islam. They're about as closely connected to Islam as Anders Breivik is connected to Christianity.
They acted because of their understanding of their religion. I mean, they are jihadis because
absolutely false. These are people who owned nightclubs. They were angry about foreign policy. Max, they were angry about foreign policy, the wars. They were angry about disenfranchisement. They were angry about marginalisation.
Religion. I mean, that makes them jihadis, of course.
Angela Merkel has been absolutely correct. She's calling for Christians to behave in a more Christian-like manner.
If they murder because of religion, they look targets because of religion. And that's why Donald Trump is fully right when he states that they attacked Christianity in particular, and that there is a religious aspect in this Islamistic terrorism. And maybe you can explain me what happens in Egypt in the last week when the cathedral of the Copts were attacked.
Attacking a Christmas
this was clearly an anti-Christian attack. So we cannot deny that there is a religious
Dan in the studio here again. Are you saying, Mo, the fact that this Christmas market, which is part of a Christian festival, are you saying the fact that was targeted is a coincidence?
No, I think, as we saw in the Nice attack, these terrorists, these lunatics, these deranged killers are going around looking for populist targets. They're trying to make a point. They're trying to hit back at what they see as being Western interests. But this is my market, as well as your market. These are our markets. These are our fellow citizens. These are diverse populations. These are people of belief and no belief. I love Christmas as much as the next person, but to say that this is an attack on Christianity is wrong. This idea about jihadism, this is language from 10 years ago. We've moved on. You are outdated in your analysis.